Next up is Finian Murphy, who is a brand strategist and who ran the hashtag Straight Up for Equality. So anybody who was familiar with the campaign will be very familiar with that hashtag. Now, before Finian, you start, I have been asked to highlight another hashtag. Hashtag Change Academy 2016 Road to Marriage. Can we all tweet, please? Because we were trending yesterday and it would be great to do so again today. So again, the hashtag is Change Academy 2016 at Road to Marriage. Finian.
Thanks, Cathy. And thank you very much for having me along this afternoon. You'll all enjoy the sun later on, I'm sure. I'm going to talk a little bit about Straight Up for Equality. It was a project part of Agility, a collaborative group that I work with, and it was an experiment that took off a little bit more than we expected. Let me bring you back to November 2014, when I realised we're not all equal. As a white male looking to the future, I was going to get married, have kids, have a house, all those perfectly normative things. And as I stood looking back at all the people that had come to celebrate our wedding, myself and Siobhan's wedding, I realised there was people in that group who didn't have the same privilege as I did. This was the first real time I realised my ignorance. And actually, in a lot of ways, it very much annoyed me. So, over the course of the next couple of weeks, I had a lot of conversations about the timing of the referendum, what was going to happen. And on my honeymoon, we went down to Kerry. For those of you that don't know Ireland, head down to Dingle, get away from everything, and bring down a couple of books. First one I brought was Brian O'Driscoll, The Test, a dreadful read, but all the same, a great man. A man, again, who had a very interesting career, but white, male, affluent. When you compare it against a fellow speaker from the event today, Panty, I read a chapter of Brian and a chapter of Panty back to back every couple of hours, and it really made me see the different worlds that exist. And as I returned as well over Christmas, I read Una Mullally's In the Name of Love, an amazing history of the challenge and struggles, in fact, and the great work that have been done by many people here today. And again, it opened my eyes up to the fact that this has been a long road, and hopefully there was more to come over the next couple of months. Strangely enough, those three books really got me worked up, particularly O'Driscoll. He didn't give away too much. But when I went back down to Dingle again, there was a group of us working at Other Voices, and over pints and chats, we talked about what could we do. Obviously, yes, equality, marriage equality is there. But from a straight person's point of view, how do we get straight people out to support LGBT friends? And in fact, for many, they weren't even aware. Like me, I knew people, but I just hadn't really engaged in it. I had assumed, like the previous speaker, saying that it was never something that came up in conversation. So why would we need to talk about it? But we did. And we really need to open up the conversation about all aspects, from families, for relationships, even about marriage and the purpose and the role of marriage in our country and society. So this is where we formed this idea of having a purpose to begin with, being really, really clear of what I and what the group could do in terms of helping the movement. And so we set about with the purpose of creating conversations about equality. We spoke with Marriage Equality earlier on, and we got to understand where they were coming from. And with a slightly different tone and with a slightly different target audience initially, we looked at the working title of Straight Up for Equality. And we got a lot of stick at the time for the use of the word straight, and it stuck because people embraced it. In fact, people were telling us, you know, this is something that's part of my identity, and I'm completely in support of this movement as well. So the idea was released, a very simple one-page website. We asked people to sign up, give their details. Interestingly, it was so uncertain as to who was behind this. People had all sorts of notions as to what was going on. But people simply wanted to say, I am straight up. And in the first 2 weeks, over 10,000 people simply signed up and gave their email. So we had some kind of platform. We had a group of people from across the country. An idea began to form, an idea that it was a citizens' platform for encouraging people to have conversations about equality ahead of the marriage referendum. And Una Mullally, who worked with me on this, she put it really well. If one person is unequal in our society, then we all are. So our call to action for everyone was, we as a majority have to stand with the minority. Not stand up for or support or prop, but stand alongside. And that was, again, an important aspect of what we were doing. We reached out a couple of video producers. I wanted to include this today because this was the video that launched really wide open, quite bland in terms of what it was trying to achieve. But what was interesting is we just wanted people to be proud of the country, the society that they were part of, and ultimately say, yeah, we're on board with this. What can we do? So we released this video with help from independent video producers, all stock footage, and it just took off. So the first couple of weeks, we had over 100,000 people being reached, and then this spread, and I'll talk about the spikes and sustaining those earlier on. So this was very much about gathering our tribe. We had 10,000 people signed up. We really wanted to leverage that group of people and get them using their networks and spread out the message. We also enlisted a number of various influencers, and we'll speak about this, I'm sure, later on. We sat down and we said, who do we not want on our list? We don't want obvious people on our list. We want people that people will say, oh yeah, I didn't think they would support that, but if they support it, I can support this. So every day we had various personalities speaking out in their support. And then ultimately, we also wanted to focus on getting outside of Dublin. So we were keeping track all the time of the numbers of where people were signing up from, and then responding to whether they were spiking or they were dipping with various personalities, maybe a GAA player, for example, in a certain county. We didn't want Brian or Amy. And ultimately, Brian tweeted out. So people were getting behind this, and it was a very responsive campaign. It was great to be involved, but it was always keeping an eye on what was going on. The real lesson for us was that we had to let the brand just live everywhere. This was becoming a stamp, and we wanted people to play with it and use it in different ways, but also, as mentioned, try to keep some kind of control over the messaging that was there. So we had, printed on T-shirts, people in Galway were making videos, and one of the simple the tactics that we engaged in was the stamp on the profile pic. What was lovely about this is, initially people were wearing the straight up for equality, and then we began to see everyone switching over to the yes equality badge. And for us, that was a real sign of success. They threw away the straight bit and they embraced the yes equality messaging. The latter involvement as well, people just wanted to wear the badge or the yes badge, people wanted a canvas, and we had to respect the fact that not everyone was going to just start knocking on doors, that there was a ladder of engagement, and we had to offer different solutions to people to get involved. All of the time we were experimenting, and that was another key message. Try something out, it might not work, and sometimes it does. One of the aspects behind the scenes was that it wasn't all about social. While it was mentioned that the hashtag, in fact, a lot of our messaging was through email. We wanted to ask people a little bit more personal. We got a lot of feedback on email. We were able to ask questions which people mightn't necessarily answer in public on social media. And this informed a lot of the thinking around, I'm doing this because I'm allowed to get married. I'm doing this because I want my kids to marry. I'm doing this so that my friends are treated the same way that I am. And a lot of this message was coming back through email. And we wanted to have fun as well, because ultimately the messaging from Yes Equality and various other campaigns, it was enjoyable. And as a kid growing up, and for those of you not from Ireland, Bosco here on the phone was my childhood icon. When Bosco and Dustin called me and said, we want to make a video, it was probably the best moment of my life. So we got them on board, and they did it in such a way that comedy played a great role. They had some killer lines in there that really just tore to strips of that in terms of how people were arguing against the whole movement. The fifth stage then, spikes and sustains. So I mentioned earlier on that spike at the beginning, it went viral, but really that wasn't going to help us because we had to bring it right through to the end of May and work in tandem with the Yes Equality campaigners. So every Wednesday we would sit down, we would understand what the messaging was from that week, and then we would feed that back into to our group. So a lot of the spikes we would engineer, we would put out different messaging, we would put out different videos, and then towards the end as well, we ran an event the week beforehand. And the days leading up to the vote itself, a lot of feedback was coming back to us. Oh well, sure, everyone's voting yes, but of course we had to make sure people would get out there. So David O'Doherty, the comedian, asked, could I do something? We said, let's actually do something in the last 24, 36 hours. This was David sitting doing various things all day long instead of actually going out and voting. The key message, don't be an idiot like him. And that was another key video for us. Yeah. And then the last stage, I suppose, is sharing success. Again, people love to be patted on the back. And I reckon about a third of who signed up because they like to be able to talk to their friends about the thing that they signed up to. And so simply saying, congrats, we got to this number, we were able to get people into an event. So week before, Whelan says yes, and we got together. The brief to us as a group was, this is not about celebrating, but by God, there was real feeling that night that something was about to happen. And we just wanted to say to everyone, keep it going. There's another 7 days, keep on pushing. And it was a lovely night. Ultimately, we just wanted to begin to say thank you, that you still have to do the hard work. And I think as well that what's interesting to see now is that there was a real energy and enthusiasm for engaging in, I think values is a great word that was mentioned, because so much of this was simply about acknowledging the values that you stood for, the privilege that you might have, and trying to share that with everyone else. So the 6 stages: having a purpose, creating an idea and a platform, so rallying the troops by experimenting with various tactics, gathering a tribe and really leveraging them. We didn't have any budget or media spend to get this message out there. We wanted people to work for us because when it came from them, it was a lot more authentic. Spikes and sustain, it's not a case of going, well, it's fantastic that we're trending. It's not just trending today. It has to constantly be a conversation. It has to be spoken at the kitchen table, in the pub, and share that success and acknowledge the failures as you go along as well. I'll finish up on my proud dad moment. 19 days ago, my wife gave birth to Tom. And, well, I'll pass that on to her. I think a lot of the messaging for me as well, and I think this explores into other areas, the role of fathers and the role of family. And, for Tom, there's another choice, which is tough, because he has to make another choice now in life. So I think for the future, that's a message. Let's get more choices out to people, because everyone is entitled to have a choice.
Finian obviously didn't realise I was 8 months pregnant and liable to burst into tears at the sight of a newborn baby. Thank you very much for that. And again, an example of the very innovative work that went on during the campaign.